Hi everyone, welcome back to the next diecast. In today's video, I'll be showing you and reviewing this 1/18 scale Volvo S60 made by CSM. I got this model from eBay for around $95 in total, including shipping. And you can find this model primarily on eBay for usually between $90 and $150, depending on the seller and where the model is actually going to be sent to you from. And these prices all include shipping. In the cases of a lot of these dealer edition models in 1/18 scale, such as this CSM Volvo S60, they usually do seem to come from China because China seems to be the primary market where these dealer edition models are sold in. And that's where mine happen to be shipped from. So this model is mostly based off the Chinese version of the S60, although the S60 was very similar in most of the markets that it was sold in. I'm not sure if this particular model is actively being produced at this point because the S60 in real life was recently retired from production, at least here in the United States, after the 2025 model year. And production actually just ended, at least here in the US, for the car in June of 2024. So the S60 was produced between 2000 and 2024 over the course of 3 different generations. And 1/18 scale models seem to have been made for all the generations of the S60. Although, if you in particular want a model of the most recent version of the Volvo S60, you are going to have to go with the CSM version that you see here. And CSM actually produced this in 2 colors. Of course, you have the really beautiful looking fusion red metallic that you see here. And there was also kind of a darker, sort of a beige or brown metallic, which had the same interior that you see with this red version, which is a nice light gray shade, and the same wheels. And they both go for a similar price, and they seem to be equivalent in terms of how widely available they are to buy online. But again, I don't think these models are actively being produced at this point, but they do still seem to be widely available, at least as of 2024. The CSM company or model group is actually based under the Meiqiang Group. That's the parent company of the CSM brand, apparently, which I was kind of curious to learn about because Maisto and Brago are also under the Meiqiang Group. So I thought it was kind of interesting that Meiqiang is also the parent company for a brand that produces these higher-end dealer edition 1/18 scale models. CSM has made various higher-end models over the years, and I think they did a good job overall with replicating the most recent version of the Volvo S60 with this model. But there are some, I think, bits and pieces that can certainly be improved upon, since this is a higher end model. This model of the 3rd generation Volvo S60 is not based on a particular model year, although this model is based off the S60 T5R design. And the S60R design is basically a sportier version of the S60. It came with these unique wheels that you see here. And the front seats were shaped a little bit differently. They had, I think, wider bolsters on them. And there were just some additional, like, minor differences in features and details here and there. And the front end had kind of a more blacked out look to it in terms of the grille and the lower portion of the bumpers. So in terms of the details of this model by CSM, we will start up here with the front. CSM, I think, really did a great job of capturing the overall look and shape of the S60. This is, I think, a very good-looking luxury sedan, and it does definitely, I think, stand out among the other sedans that you see on the road. In the front here, you will see that the headlights are quite well done in terms of look, shape, and detail. The lenses are nice and flush with the body, as you'll see right here. The indicator lights were kind of done as these white components here, and they are painted on, but at least CSM painted them on the inside portion of the lens as opposed to the outside portion of the lens. But the overall look and shape of the headlights, I think, is quite well done. And especially from a distance, they look really, really nice. You do have kind of the molded in LED pattern on the corner of the headlight and on the upper portion, as you'll see right here. And you have kind of the molded in bulbs back there as well. So CSM, I think, did a good job in the sense of the headlights for sure. The center grille here looks decently done. It is not a see-through grille, unfortunately. It's not like a perforated piece of plastic, but it does have the texture of the front grille that you would see on the real car. So they at least did do a decent job with that, I would say. The chrome surround is made out of metal, as is the Volvo badge in the center, which is a separately cast piece, and it does really stand out and pop out in the middle here too. It looks really, really nice. Down here you do have these lower grills, which look well done for the most part. There is kind of a small gap, at least on this grill here, between the plastic and the metalwork, but you can't really see that unless you look at it like really close. And the lower grill down here, I think, looks very well done. The whole front end is made of metal, as is the base and the wheels as well, which is really cool to see. And that's honestly what norm seems to be for these nicer kind of higher end dealer edition 1/18 scale models. They have all of these very high quality parts and everything, which is very nice to see. The paint quality on the model, I would say, is amazing. Nice and smooth throughout. The Fusion Red looks excellent on both the model and on the real car. And it does have a beautiful metallic sparkle to it as well, which I really do love to see. They also did a nice job with the wipers and the side mirrors. The side mirrors are cast in this gloss black plastic, and they look very well done. And they do fold inward too. Of course, you do have the side windows on the model and also the full sunroof, which are very nice touches. And this radio antenna is actually molded into the metalwork instead of a separately cast plastic piece like you see for many 1/18 scale models. Taking a look at the side of the model, CSM really did do a great job with the S60's wheels. Again, these wheels were standard for the S60 T5R design, and they really do, I think, stand out. And they're made out of a real metal too, which is a very cool touch. That being said, I think the disc brakes and calipers could definitely use some more detailing. CSM kind of made the calipers as these not so well detailed gray pieces. I imagine there would be some kind of inscription on the real ones, like maybe Volvo or something like that, and they wouldn't be as kind of a glossy finish as you see with these here. But the brake discs at least do move with the wheels and move through the calipers. And the brake discs do look decently done. They do look a little bit too smooth in terms of, being brake discs, but all this is kind of well hidden, I think, behind the spokes of the wheels. And the wheels are two-tone, as you'll kind of see here. You have kind of the gloss black finish and this more chrome finish. And the tires are well done too, I would say, for sure. You also do get full suspension on the model and steering too. The steering is not that great, but at least it does actually steer with the steering wheel. And when you have it up on the shelf like this with the wheels turned, it does, of course, look very cool with this model. So nice to see that CSM did include those touches on here. The defroster is present back here on the rear window. I always like to see that on these higher end models. Back here you have the Volvo inscription on the top portion of the trunk lid, and then you have the S60 inscription along with some Chinese characters down here, because this once again is based off the Chinese version of the S60. All of this is separately cast badging. It's not just like a one big sticker or embossed on there in paint. These are all separately done letters, which is very cool to see. Same thing with the S60 badge, those Chinese characters down there, and also the T5 badge on the right side of the trunk lid. I think at least for the US version of this car, this badging would all be the same except for those Chinese characters and whatever that little square is next to the T5, although I think that might be on the real car in terms of the US version. But CSM did a good job back here, I think, with all of those details. And all the taillights look well done back here too, for sure. Similar to the headlights, they do fit nice and flush with the body. And of course, you don't see any of the glue pegs, both in the taillights and on the headlights, which is very nice to see. And you also have these lower lights down here on the rear bumper, which are also done as separately cast plastic pieces, which I do really like to see. And the rear exhaust pipes are also decently done as well. They are trimmed in chrome. Now, in terms of the working and the opening features on the model, I already showed you the folding side mirrors. But you also do have the opening rear trunk, which is a bit stiff, but I do like to see that, and opens up like this. As you can see, CSM did include this fully carpeted rear trunk area back here. And the carpeting is very nice, and it almost looks and feels like the real carpeting that you would see in the real car. And the trunk does go all the way back to where the rear seats are, similar to what you would see in the real car. And you actually get the liner underneath the trunk lid too, which is also done in a felt pattern. So I really did like to see that. Not really that much else to talk about back here besides that, but CSM I think did do a good job back here with the trunk for sure, especially considering that this is a higher end model. You also have the opening hood on the model too. Now CSM does include this handy door opener tool. It even has the CSM brand name on this side. Now I kind of wish CSM, at least for the hood, included a small button to kind of pop up the hood. Lots of higher end model manufacturers will do that. And it just saves the need of having to, sort of almost jam one of these in between like a gap to get the hood like raised up, because then you might risk, scratching the paint and whatnot. So for that reason, I won't be raising up the hood too much, but this tool does make it simple enough to do. There is actually a decent sized gap in the front here, not to the point where it takes away from the quality of the model, but to the point where you can see that. I forgot to mention that when I was showing the front portion of the model. This is the only, I think, major panel gap of concern on the model. There is kind of a small one back here with the trunk lid, but these are very minor panel gaps compared to what I've seen on some of the lower end models that I have. But having the gap actually is nice to have, because then you can just use the door opener tool to kind of get it in between the gap like this, and then raise up the hood like so. Now, the engine detail on the model, I would say, is decently done. I think CSM could have maybe done some more detailing in terms of a more three-dimensional look. This engine is made up of mostly just a couple of different single, like, molded pieces of plastic. That's where the sort of, like, Maisto-ish elements will come in here. And not in, like, a very bad way, because a lot of Maisto's engines on their models are definitely less detailed than this one that you see here, but CSM, I think, did an okay job with the details in here. The real-life S60's engine did have a lot of different, covers and stuff in here, like this portion that you see right here. It does have the very small Volvo inscription going on there. And you do have a few different colors going on too, like you have this red back here and over here. Although I think this red should actually more closely match the metallic red that you see on the outside of the model. So the engine detail, I think, could definitely be improved upon. That being said, at least this portion is made out of metal. They do put in the very small warning labels that you see in the front here, along with that fluid cap right there. And yeah, there is some three-dimensional details in here, but I think a little bit more detailing would have definitely been welcome for the engine of this model for sure. Close that up. And of course, you also have the opening doors on the model too. And that does include the rear doors too, which I do, of course, like to say. Then we'll get the front door, like that. We'll open up the passenger side doors too, just so you can see all four doors opened up. The interior detail, I think, on this CSM model is fairly well done for a higher end model. You can see in here that the interior is fully carpeted with a nice high quality felt, and the overall look and shape of the dashboard and steering wheel, I think, is very well done. You can see the nice silver trim with the different vents going on there. And you have the nice three-dimensional Volvo badge in the center of the steering wheel, which does look very well done. You do have the screen, the center screen turned on, and the different buttons that are painted on underneath the screen. Now, CSM just kind of painted on the buttons as just these basic silver kind of dots. I think on the real Volvo S60, they would, of course, say different things and not be just these random silver dots, but at least CSM did put the buttons in there and didn't just, leave them blank or something like that. The shifter looks decently done as well. It is a separately cast piece of plastic. Kind of a little bit too shiny, I think, for my taste, but at least it does look well done. And then you have the different buttons and knobs painted behind the shifter as well, which is nice to say. And again, a nice shape and texture for the dashboard. The vents look very well done. Door panels are decently detailed, as you can see here. CSM did mold in the window switches as well, although they're not colored in. On the real car, they wouldn't be just like that light gray to match the door panel. So I wish they maybe put in some like different colored buttons for the window switches, but what they have there I think is fine. And the door panels do have a nice two-tone look, as you can see here, and a decent texture to them as well. I think some more fine detailing would have been welcome, like maybe have the buttons actually painted on for the door handle or for the window switches instead of just being molded into the plastic. Because I think on the real Volvo S60, they would, of course, have different labels on the window switches. And the speakers are molded into the door panels as well, and they do look, I think, well done. And you can actually see the dashboard and the center stack through the sunroof here. There's actually a better look at the steering wheel. CSM does paint on the different buttons that you see on the real Volvo S60's steering wheel. So I do like to see that different fine detailing in there for sure. CSM also includes the center console back here for the rear seat. It does have the nice molded in vents along with the temperature controls on there as well. You also get the fabric seat belts with the separately cast buckles, which is a very nice touch. And you also have a full headliner on the model too. It's gonna be kind of hard to see, but there's the headliner there. And you have the molded in grab handles as well for each of the 4 seats. And speaking of the seats, CSM did a great job with capturing the overall look and shape of the seats on the model too. It's kind of hard to say, but the seats actually do have a nice pattern and texture to them. They're almost kind of like a rubbery, like leather-like texture, which is, of course, what you would see on the real Volvo S60. And I do like how CSM did capture that here. They also did a good job with capturing the overall look and shape of the sporty front seats that, of course, did come standard on the S60R design model. And same goes for the rear seat. CSM did do an overall good job of capturing the look, shape, and details with that rear seat too. And it is kind of hard to see with the doors open like this because they do have the full side windows. But CSM, I think, did a great job with the interior detailing for sure. I think some minor improvements could be had here and there, but in general, the interior, I think, does look great for a higher end model. Now, the undercarriage detail on the model is quite well done as well. It is fully metal underneath here, and CSM does mold in the exhaust system with this silver plastic. I think a bit more fine detailing would have been welcome for the undercarriage, but you're not really going to be looking down there too frequently. And I do at least like how CSM did make the undercarriage fully metal. It really does add to the overall weight and quality of this model, which I really do like to see. If you're a fan of the Volvo S60 or Volvos in general or just modern sedans, I think this 1/18 scale model of the S60 third generation by CSM is a great choice to consider adding to your collection of 1/18 scale cars. I think some details certainly could have been improved upon, such as the engine detail and certain fine detailing on the interior of the model, but I think as long as you're paying not much over $130 for the model in total, you're getting a good model So if you can look past some of the flaws of the model that I mentioned, I think this really is a good model to consider getting for your collection, especially if you're into modern sedans or Volvo in general. So feel free to comment down below with your thoughts on this model or on the video. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.